thank you for joining us today for the Imagine 2022 session called Graduate School, How to Find One, Get In, and Get It Paid For. Imagine 2022 is sponsored by the President's Office, Career Services, and the Oswego Alumni Association. My name is Hannah. I'm a first-year student in the mental health counseling program. I did see in the chat box that that Christine mentors a student who's interested in mental health. So if there are any questions about the mental health program in particular, I'd be happy to answer them. I am also a graduate assistant on campus for the Counseling Services Center and also for a couple of faculty in the mental health counseling program. And I am also a graduate ambassador. Today, I am going to serve as the session host, and I'll be monitoring the chat box. So before we do get started, just to address a few housekeeping items, tonight's event is being recorded and will be posted on the Imagine 2022 website. So you can go back and view anything and also share it with any friends who are unable to attend. You're welcome to use the chat and you're free to ask questions throughout the session. And as I already mentioned, I am more than happy to answer any questions about my experiences with the graduate school process. And if you haven't already, please check out the events on the Imagine 2022 website so that you don't miss out on any of the other amazing sessions that are going on throughout this month. And the links are going to be shared in the chat box. So there's that link right there. And now it is my pleasure to turn it over to tonight's presenters. We have SUNY Oswego's very own Sharon Griffin, who is the graduate admissions counselor, and Jackie Wallace, who is a career coach.
Hello, my name is Jackie Wallace, and my industry area in career services is education, public and human services. I'll turn it over to Sharon, introduce herself as well, and then we'll get started.
Great, thank you, Jackie. My name is Sharon Griffin. I am the graduate admissions counselor in the Division of Graduate Studies here at SUNY Oswego. Jackie, you're muted.
Thank you. So here's our agenda for today. So we started off with some introductions. We're going to talk about graduate school, what you're thinking about, if it's going to be a good fit, and is this the time to start, ways to search, also ways that you can think about funding your graduate school program, the process on how to apply and stand out, and how to select your programs. We will spend time for Q&A at the end as well. So thank you all for joining us. You are welcome if you have questions to go ahead and put them in the chat or take yourself off mute if you'd like, and we can address them as we go. So we do have a graduate school handout that I'll put in the chat in a moment that will take you through some things to think about as well as you're considering to see if this is the right time and the right next stage in your career path. Some things to consider though. So I know when folks are meeting with career coaches in our office, one of the questions come up is, should I apply to graduate school? Well, there's some things to think about that help you really process that. One is the return on investment. So is a program going to allow you to get into a specific career field? Is it going to allow you to either maybe advance in your career, change career paths? Is it needed for the careers that you are considering as you're planning out your next stages in your career? Because graduate school costs a little bit of money, right? So you want to make sure that you're getting that return. But also, is it going to enhance or narrow your employment prospects as well? And so interesting kind of perspective here is that my undergrad was in business and I graduated from SUNY Oswego. I also have my MBA from here. I was considering at some point in time, maybe getting to corporate America, maybe getting to nonprofit work, but I was really enjoying higher ed. I knew that was going to be my next stages in my career is to stay there. I could have gone on though to maybe a master's degree in higher education, which a lot of my colleagues do have it. So they got that one step ahead of me in there is understanding more career development and those types of things. So I had to go and do some additional certifications in order to, be able to be competent in this field. But also because it was an MBA, had a more broad opportunity for employment prospects if I do decide to leave higher ed. So there's some things to consider in a way as you're considering the next stages in your education as well. And oftentimes it might just be that you want to take a deeper dive into the field. And I was feeling a lot of this when I completed my undergrad, is that I wanted to learn more. I felt like I wanted to do more in marketing and management and supervision. And that's what really led me to the MBA program. But you might be considering maybe advanced degrees, whether it's your PhD or EDD. And there's some, programs to think about that. Maybe you want to teach in higher education as well, or just want to become an expert in, sociology, anthropology, or many different fields that are out there. And then that really relates to your degree path too, of what that looks like. How do you want to continue on? Is it a master's degree? Is it a postdoc degree? A lot of things to consider. And then of course is I know when I want to go, but I'm not sure when. Do I want to do it now or later? And that really is a very personal decision too. Everyone has their own perspectives there. Also could depend upon your program, your career goals, and what makes the most sense for you. And when you're able to really make that commitment, it might be that you've been in school, for a long time, since preschool, kindergarten. Do you need some time off? Do you want to get more experience in the field first? And I hear a lot about that with my participants in my degree program when I was in a master's program, is that there were a number of people that had taken some time off, were currently in the field, and were able to really apply what they were learning too. So that was kind of neat. You might even want to take a gap year and stuff too, or you might want to just jump right in, that that you want to get into mental health counseling and you want to do it as soon as you can, and you need that degree and that certification and everything in order to get there too. So there's a lot of things to consider when you're weighing your pros and cons. Sharon, what's some things that you think about or talk to folks about when they're weighing their pros and cons?
It really is a lot of what you just said. Some people just don't know for sure what they want to go into. And so I often caution people not to go to grad school right away just because they don't know what else to do. And sometimes you do find that students are like, well, I'm not sure what I want to do. I just kind of want to stay in school. And that's not the best way to go about it because, as you mentioned, graduate school is expensive, or more expensive than undergrad, and it is an investment. And it's for the most part, very narrow in its what you're learning, and you can't transfer, or switch majors like you can at the undergrad level. So, I just encourage people, if they know they want to go on and they already know how to be a student, right? So they're kind of already in that mode of study habits, and frankly, typically don't already have a paycheck coming in. So it's easier to say, okay, I'll just going to keep going and get my degree and get it over with, as opposed to having to make a shift a little bit later. As we know, things can happen, and life might take you on a different path, and then you might have that regret that you never got your degree. So it really is an individual choice based on a lot of different factors.
Yeah, and that was me too, Sharon, is that I was finishing up my undergrad. I had that momentum. I was still thirsty to learn more. And I knew that if I had waited, it would have been probably a little bit more difficult if I had started a family and stuff like that to go back, and just knowing myself and stuff too. And so lots of things to think about.
Absolutely.
All right. So there's some best practices as well to the whole search. And so there's a neat site that I'm going to put in the chat too, if you want to open that up. But SUNY has their own search database for programs. So you can search by program, level, online, in person, make it a little bit easier if you want to stay in a state school in New York. But I also find that I can find some really awesome programs working with students once they have the kind of the focus of where they want to go, by either looking through a professional association or accreditation agency. So for example, our MBA program in the School of Business is accredited by AACSB. I'm going to give you that example in the chat. And then our mental health program, for example, is accredited by KCREP. So looking through there, they have a directory of accredited programs. Brand new programs might not already be accredited. They have to kind of go through that process and stuff. So it won't catch everyone, but it'll definitely catch the programs that have been vetted and that are robust, and especially ones that lead to certification. You want to make sure that you're going through accreditation as well. But also I find a lot of really also professional associations have a great directory as well. So American Psychological Association, APA, Also has a directory of programs too that they recommend. Some of the professional associations are also accrediting agencies too. And then of course I know higher ed programs, and we actually have quite a few students that will continue on into higher ed. So NASPA, for example, has a directory of professional associations. On the Career Services website, in the What Can I Do with a Major in, we do list out professional associations there too. So you can check them out and see if they have some recommendations of programs that you can review. And note that a lot of these professional associations have reduced membership rates for graduate students. So I'm just gonna put a plug there. A great way to start networking as an undergrad even, and as a grad student, building your network. Someone quoted the other day, your network is your net worth. So it's never too early to make those connections and talk with people that are continuing on as well and get their feedback about different programs, about their experiences and how it's helped them in their career as well. Now, our graduate school resources on our website also have lots of different ways that you can search for programs. You can look up, through like Princeton Review, as well as top programs for specific fields. There's also a number of graduate school search sites if you're doing some general searches. What I have found is sometimes with those is that they have you sign up and then people are calling you right away. So that's the downside I feel of being able to do it that way. But I have found that if you know what you want to go for, being able to talk to people that are already in the field, what schools they went to, is going to give you a really firsthand perspective. And then as you narrow down kind of the schools, being able to, and we'll talk about this later, just connect with them as well as you're doing your search. Check out those different resources as you're starting to review. And the checklist will give you some things to think about as well of all the different things you need to consider as you're applying. Career Services is a great resource. We have a number of resources on our website, but also you're welcome to connect with one of our career coaches. And of course, as you're searching, you're thinking about, is this program going to be a good fit? So as you're getting to know the programs, being able to look at the different courses, the different faculty, what their expertise is as well, and does that align with what you want to do? So if you're thinking about that, even in mental health counseling, that you want to focus more working with children and doing some play therapy, do they have faculty that do that full time that are going to be great mentors for you as you are participating in your higher ed program and developing your competencies for your future career path too? So lots of things to consider, but also lots of learning that you're doing, and questions will come up through that process. Think about how you search for programs as an undergrad, because that'll give you some ideas and things to think about. So a few things to reflect upon as you're thinking about your goals and considering higher education, the different types of programs. So is it flexible, or do you kind of commit with a cohort to go through the program together? I know in the past we've had some grad students in our office that, for example, were part of like the school psychology program. They took specific classes with those people throughout their programs as well. Others allow you to take a class here and there, even to see, if you want to go part-time. So there's things to think about as you're looking at different programs. Like I said, the cohort model, for example, or is it flexible? Do you want to do it in person, online, maybe a hybrid? There's, I think, lots more potential these days, to really customize that as we've adapted the last couple of years. But also think about kind of where you're at in your lifestyle and stage in your life. So is it designed, if you're out there working part-time, to be able to do that way? Or do you need to go all in and dedicate the next year or two to full-time grad program as well? So as you're looking and asking questions and researching programs, think about that. And then, of course, the number of degrees, credits that are going to be required, and where does that put you back as far as finances, but also time commitment. Some opportunities might have you even doing certificate programs, which was nice to be able to even enhance, your full-time degree too. Like I, mentioned play therapy as an example. And then of course costs as well. And we're going to be talking about funding and stuff later down the road. But I'm going to turn it over to Sharon to talk about too, some other things to see if it's going to be a right fit.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, so in addition to those things that Jackie just outlined, once you kind of have a sense of what program or what you want to actually study, whether it be an MBA or mental health counseling or education, then it's a really good idea, once you narrow down schools that offer the program, is then to take a look deeper into what the actual program has to offer. So for example, strategic communication here at SUNY Oswego may look very different than strategic communication degree looks at another institution. So take a look at their catalog. The course catalog is typically available on their website. Check out their program pages on the website for the institution. It should give you a breakdown of the actual courses you'll be taking. And then read those descriptions and really say if that excites you. If you look at them, you read that, wow, yeah, that's really what I want to study. This is where I want to go. Also, Jackie mentioned, looking at the faculty. So look at the faculty in the program that you're going to study and decide whether or not, they are doing research in areas of interest that really excite you. Again, this is going to depend on what program that you're looking into. But we have some amazing faculty, for example, here at Oswego, that we get people that come from all over, for example, for our HCI program, our human computer interaction, because the head of the program, Dr. Damien Schofield, is very well known in his field internationally. And so people will choose to come here just to study with him and do research with him. And you'll find that across most of our programs. The other thing is a lot of people don't realize that graduate offices typically have an admissions counselor. So that you might remember when you were applying to undergraduate school that you probably met with an admissions counselor at your high school or at a college fair, or maybe came to campus for a campus visit and had to sit down with an admissions counselor. Those do exist at the graduate level as well. So take advantage of that and reach out to the graduate admissions department at the institutions that you're interested in, because they can really help guide you and connect you to the appropriate people. Sometimes it can feel overwhelming, right? You're not sure, how do I reach out to a faculty member? How do I find out more about this specific program? Well, the graduate admissions counselor really serves as kind of a generalist. So for example, here at Oswego, we have over 40 programs of study. I do not know each program intimately. And so what I do is I talk to students about the general admissions process and how to go about connecting with those faculty or alumni or current students that they're interested in hearing from. So I kind of feel like I'm kind of a liaison for the or an advisor for students interested in any of our graduate programs. Another thing I would definitely utilize is your social media. If you don't belong on LinkedIn, consider joining LinkedIn. It's a great way to, again, check out what's going on the college campuses that you're interested in or within programs. And so that's also another way that you can really take advantage of kind of looking in at the program without, if you're not quite ready to commit to actually talking to someone, you can kind of take a peek in what's going on through what you see on their social media pages. So since I mentioned SUNY Oswego, I do want to take this opportunity to kind of just give us a plug. There are over 40 programs of study here at SUNY Oswego. This is just a list of a few of them. We have a very strong School of Education program, including teacher education for those who do not have an undergraduate degree. So if you are out there listening and you say, wow, I wish I had chosen to major in education, but now it's too late. I'm a second semester senior or whatever, you can still do an education master's program without an undergraduate degree in education. And that's called our MST program. And then we also have a variety of other certification programs for people who already have an education undergrad. So in New York State, you do have to have a master's degree in education to become permanently or professionally certified as an educator. We also offer, as Hannah mentioned, we offer a mental health counseling program, as well as school counseling and school psychology, and they all live under our CPS department. They overlap in some of their courses, the foundation courses, but then they are very separate programs that will give you separate credentials and career paths. We have an MBA, as Jackie mentioned, strategic communication, graphic design, human-computer interaction, biomedical and health informatics and chemistry are just a few to round out kind of the list. If anybody listening in ever wants to have a discussion about any of our programs, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to share more with you about what we have to offer. Thank you for allowing me to give that little plug at our own programs. Now we'll shift back to a little bit more generic information that's helpful for students applying to any school. So there's a couple things to keep in mind. Every institution is going to have its own process, deadlines and requirements. And even within a college or a university, the programs themselves are going to have possibly different deadlines, different requirements. So it's not like when you were an undergrad and you applied to, SUNY Oswego and you sent in your application, and yes, you chose a major, but it didn't really matter too much, because the review team in the program, you were being accepted to the institution, not necessarily specifically to the program in most cases. In graduate school, it's very different. You're actually applying directly to the program. And so the requirements for that program may differ within an institution. So make sure that you are aware of all of that as you start the process. The best time to really start this process would be your junior year, if you're planning to go straight on to graduate school. That gives you the time to kind of understand what the requirements are. And if there are prerequisites, it will give you a chance to possibly pick up those prerequisites while you're still an undergrad, so you don't have to worry about fulfilling them once you're in graduate school. Take a look at different schools' deadlines, and that can be found on their website, or reach out to their admissions counselor, like I mentioned earlier. Some application processes are done on a rolling basis, which means that once your application is completed and submitted, it will be sent over to the program review team for a decision, and you would find out within usually 4 weeks or so. Other programs may have a fixed deadline, which means you have to apply by a certain date, or you have to wait till the following year. So for example, our CPS programs here at Oswego have a hard February 1st deadline. So if you're looking to apply to any of those 3 programs, your application must be complete and submitted by February 1st. And that group of applicants is reviewed as a cohort. They're reviewed as a grouping to determine the best pool for that year's cohort. And so if you miss that February 1st deadline, you have to wait another whole year before you can be reviewed and admitted into that program. So keep those things in mind as you're looking at different programs and making sure that you don't miss those important deadlines. When you're applying for graduate school, there are some common requirements that are included pretty much in any program that you're going to apply to, and then there may be additional ones. So one of the main things is your letter of interest. And sometimes this is called a personal statement or an essay, but basically what it is your opportunity to share with the review team why you want to do this program and why you feel that you're a good fit for that specific program at that institution. So in other words, if you're applying to more than one school, you should not be using a generic letter that you would use for every institution. You really should be making sure that you're able to pull out areas within the specific program that really shows that you have an interest in studying at that institution. Some applications may ask you to answer a prompt or to read something and then respond to it as part of their essay. But most of them are more this generic letter of interest, where it really gives you an opportunity to pull out the important parts of your transcripts, for example. So say, for example, perhaps you fall slightly below a 3.0, which is generally speaking, the GPA that they're looking for in most grad programs. So say you fall below a 3.0, but you had a really rough semester. Maybe something happened your freshman year. Maybe you were in the wrong major and did not do well. This is your opportunity where you can kind of speak to those issues and tell the reviewers, it's there on your transcript. They're going to review your transcript, so they're going to see that. So you might as well address it instead of ignoring it, and give an explanation and maybe point to the fact that perhaps, although you didn't do well this particular semester, something was going on in your life, whether it's personal or you were in the wrong major or whatever it may be. But then you increased your GPA by, getting back on the right track. So talk about that. It's also your place to really talk about if you've been out of school a long time. Now, everyone's probably listening on here are current students, but if you decide to leave and go back to school a few years down the road, this is also a time to talk about, why now and where did that interest come from? And this is especially important if you are coming from a very different background. So most programs of study, including here at Oswego, you can go into those programs from any undergraduate background. So for example, Hannah was a communication studies major as an undergrad, and now she's in the mental health counseling program. So you don't have to necessarily have a psychology or a human development program background, but being able to talk about, well, where did this shift come from? And how did you leap from being a communication studies major as an undergrad and thinking that that was your pathway to now wanting to focus on this? And so it may be, there may be a multitude of reasons, but this is your time to really be able to share that. They'll also obviously require your transcripts. Now, if you are a SUNY Oswego student and you apply to the graduate program at SUNY Oswego, we do not require that you have your transcripts sent to us because we can just pull them for you. But at most institutions, you are going to need an official transcript sent to the university of which you are applying. These are all done electronically nowadays, so you don't need to, request them in writing and all that. It's usually a very simple thing you can do on their website. Most programs also require letters of recommendation. The number of letters may differ from program to program. The letters of recommendation are another piece of your overall application package or portfolio, if you will, that's going to add to the letter of interest and transcripts. That really gives you a chance to kind of have control over it in a sense, in that you choose who you want to have write your letters of recommendation. So it's really important that you give it some thought before you just kind of haphazardly ask somebody to be a recommender for you. Ideally, it would be a professor or a faculty member that is familiar with your abilities to study at the graduate level based on their experience with you in their classroom. You may have done an internship or some type of part-time work that is connected to your degree interest. So those would be appropriate as well. Or if you worked on campus, like as a student worker or a student leader for a club or organization, that would be appropriate too. But at least one should be from faculty, if not both. Another common requirement, depending again from program to program, from school to school, are entrance exams. These often cause people a lot of stress. So find out, first of all, if the schools you're applying to are requiring them, and then take it from there. So the most common entrance exam for graduate school is the GRE. If you're looking at an MBA program, you may be asked to take the GMAT. If you're looking to go to law school, you'll be asked to take the LSAT. And the MCATs are the most common exam for people going on to medical school. So again, I would reach out to the schools that you're applying to, find out if they are requiring them, and then ask them how much weight is given to them. How important is it? What is the average score? Where do most students fall? That just gives you a little bit of an understanding of how much time and commitment you will need to give to preparing and studying for those exams. So I'm not going to get into too much more of the nitty gritty on that, but if anyone has questions about specific programs here at Oswego or just in general about those tests, how to sign up for them, how to prepare for them. I know that Jackie just popped something in the chat about where to go to find some resources. So those are great places to get started. And then the last requirement that you might find is either an interview or a pre-advisement meeting. Again, these differ from program to program. Do you see a common theme here? So some of our programs do require that students have a pre-advisement meeting. Really, that's to your advantage. It is really to find out if you have everything that you need to get into the program in terms of your coursework. So it's an opportunity to find out if you have prerequisites that haven't been met so that you can, again, try to get those fulfilled before you start a program. In some cases, it might be an interview where it really is kind of evaluating your fit for the program and for the school. So again, differs from school to school, but those are things to keep in mind as you start thinking about the admissions process, and what you may want to start lining up to be able to apply. So Jackie mentioned earlier about being a good fit, right? So really, articulating why a program is a good fit is very important. And we mentioned that with the essay. The graduate admissions process is very different from undergrad. So it's called a decentralized admissions process. And what that means is that your applications come in through the graduate admissions office, or the graduate studies office in our case. We will help make sure that all applications are complete, that we guide you if you have questions about how to write an essay, how to get your transcript sent to us, making sure that that the folks you put in for your letters of recommendation actually submit them. We will send an email out to them to kind of encouraging them, those types of things. But then once everything is collected, we don't make the decisions in our office. It actually goes to the department. So if you're applying for mental health counseling, for example, it's going to go to the faculty in the mental health counseling department. If you're applying for the MBA, it's going to go to our MBA department faculty for review. So they will take a look at your application and see if you're a good fit for the program. They send those decisions back to the graduate or admissions office, and then we release the acceptance or denial, or in some cases deferrals. So you may find that you get a deferral if you are lacking a certain thing, but they're not quite ready to make a decision one way or the other. So if you have, for example, if you have a lower GRE score and they want to see you take it again, or if they want another letter of recommendation because they just don't feel like they got enough information out of the two that you submitted. So these don't happen very often, but they do. But it doesn't mean you're denied. It means that they want you to just more information to make an appropriate decision. So, so really the task for applicants is to identify the fit, explain your interests and passion, and link your future goals to the program. How can it meet your goals? And then to embrace your strengths and balance against your weaknesses. All these things should be represented in your application portfolio, whether it's through that essay, through a resume, which we didn't talk about. A resume is usually a part that's also required for admission. And when I say a resume, I don't mean listing, every job that you had, like if you worked retail when you were 16 years old. Not to say that's not important. It should go on there, but it shouldn't be your top thing. You should first talk about your academic achievements. So listing your what your undergraduate degree was in. If you had a very strong GPA, point that out, put that on your resume. If you did research, if you attended a conference, if you belong to different clubs and organizations on campus, especially if you held any kind of leadership board, like on an e-board, that's your opportunity to, again, highlight and be able to tie in your whole package together to show that you are a good fit for a particular program. Okay, now we get to the money portion of our show. Many people feel like they want to go to grad school, but how am I going to pay for it? Some people think it's not even feasible because they don't understand that there are a lot of options out there to help with funding. You do it. It is similar in the sense from undergrad in that you typically are encouraged to file a FAFSA. But just so you know, a FAFSA at the graduate level means a loan. So any undergraduate funding that you may have received through TAP and Pell or Excelsior, unfortunately, currently those programs are only established for undergraduate students. So at the graduate level, your FAFSA is a loan. The big difference is the amount of loan that you're allowed to take. You can take out as much as $20,500 per year through your FAFSA. So do you want to take out $20,500 a year? Maybe not. It's got to pay it back. But it's nice to know that that money is there should you need it. And that applies to students no matter what their status is. So even if you're still considered dependent on your parents. Once you're a graduate student, you are considered independent. So that's how they come up with the much higher amount of loan availability than they do at the undergrad level. There's also a number of scholarships, fellowships, and graduate assistantships that you may apply for at different schools. Scholarships are pretty, I'm sure you know what a scholarship is. They may differ, again, be very specific to a program of study. They may also obviously differ from school to school in terms of how much scholarships that they are able to offer. Fellowships and graduate assistantships typically are where you are doing something to earn that money, right? So for example, we have a fellowship program, we call it an impact scholarship or impact fellowship, where students will go out and work in, not work, but they'll do research and apply what their program of study is into the actual community to have a positive impact on the community that they are doing. For example, we had a student a couple of years ago who was a child psychology or school psychology major, sorry. And she did her fellowship over the summer between year 1 and year 2. She had a passion for wellness, and she was a yoga instructor. And so she partnered with the Children's Museum here in Oswego to offer classes for children in mindfulness and yoga. And so she did research for this with a faculty member in her department, as well as actually implementing and applying the project in the community. So having an impact in the community. And in exchange for that, besides earning wonderful experience, she received one of our fellowships, which was about $3,000. So there are ways to help finance your undergrad or your graduate schooling. A big one is our graduate assistantship. So I want to just ask Hannah to please share with us a little bit about her experience with the graduate assistantship.
Yeah, so like I mentioned in the beginning, I have two 10-hour graduate assistantships, and what they are, I feel like the word, it sounds like, I remember when I was applying, I was like, what is a graduate assistantship? I've never heard of that before, but it's basically like a job that helps pay for your schooling. So it can pay for like an entire class, which just takes a huge burden off of you. Because like Sharon has been mentioning, the cost of graduate school can sometimes just overwhelm people, which is super understandable. And so you go into it like a job interview, and where you have a graduate assistantship doesn't necessarily have to correlate with what program you're in. But for me, like one of my assistantships is through the Counseling Services Center. And like Sharon mentioned, I was a communication major for undergrad. So by being the outreach GA for the Counseling Services Center, I'm kind of able to bring in my experience with communication and marketing, but also bridge that with the program I'm in now, which is mental health counseling. So not only is it helpful because it funds your schooling, it also gives you really good experience, and you can kind of make it what you want it to be. And it helps you integrate yourself into the college community as well. So definitely look out for them, and you apply for them just like you would a job. Like you provide your resume, a cover letter, and you go through an interview process to get those.
Great. Thank you so much, Hannah. Yes. So Jackie put in the chat the link to here at SUNY Oswego to our GA job, what we call a job board. So you literally go in and click on the job description, and if it's something that sounds of interest to you, you apply, like Hannah said, just like you would for a job. And so they may differ slightly in how they compensate you. Usually it's a course or two that they will pay for per semester, depending on the type of assistantship you get, as well as a stipend. So they are a wonderful way to offset your costs and can really make a difference, not only by that, but like Hannah said, the opportunity it gets you for professional development, connecting with the community. And so I really encourage you to look at any school that you're interested in, ask about graduate assistantships. make sure that you find out about those and how to go about obtaining one. And the last thing I just want to mention is if you are a student who is an HEOP student, there is funding available at the graduate level called GEOP. It differs from school to school, and the amount definitely differs. So it's not as robust as the HEOP program, but there is some monies available. So again, when you see on your application for admission, if it asks you that question, I know ours does ask it, if you are a current HEOP student, you make sure you check that box and you automatically would qualify for some GEOP funds. Okay, so in conclusion, just to reiterate some of the things that we said is graduate school really is a commitment. You really need to understand that it's going to take time, money, energy, and passion. And if I may say so, I'm sure that Hannah would attest to this, that going into grad school is you're passionate about the subject you're going to be studying, and it gives you a lot of energy and makes you just really excited about your future. But you got to be committed, and you got to be ready to take on the challenge of graduate study work. I hope that you guys learned something today, but please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll turn it back over to Jackie to say a few closing words, but please reach out. If any of you are especially interested in SUNY Oswego's graduate programs, here's my contact information. I would be more than happy to sit down and talk with you about the different programs or connect you with the appropriate folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. When it comes to also your search and applying for services is here to help you as well. We have a number of career coaches in different industry areas you can connect to. Our main office emails for services@su.edu, but also you can make an appointment with us through Handshake. And if you're new to Oswego and don't have an su.edu email address, feel free to email us and we'll set up a time to connect. So I'll let you know also that today's recording will be put up on our SUNY Oswego Career Services YouTube, but also link back to the Imagine site. I will make sure that the Imagine link is in the chat so that you can save that. There's a number of programs still going on this week and next. And I'm going to turn it back over to Hannah to close us out.
So thank you so much to our presenters for sharing all of that wonderful information and those resources with us today about searching and successfully competing for graduate school admission and how to get it paid for. We do have time for additional questions, so if anyone would like to take themselves off mute or use the chat, you can go ahead and do so. And like I mentioned, I'm also a graduate ambassador in the graduate studies office as well. And I'm very willing and happy to speak with anyone if you have any questions about the process from a student's perspective. I find it really helpful to talk with students. I know that I attended an open house where I got to talk to students in my program before I started my program, and it was really helpful. So don't hesitate if you want to talk to me either. But you are welcome to connect with our presenters after tonight's program. Oh, it looks like we do have a question. Does Oswego offer a graduate program in higher education?
Well, that's a good question. We are in the process of getting approval for a program in higher education. And so although I can't say that we have one currently, we are very hopeful that we will have a program that will be starting in the fall. So we are waiting for the state to do its magic by approving it. And then once we know for sure when it's going to launch, we'll definitely be sending out emails. It'll be on our website. So just check back in with us.
So excited about that. I was in faculty assembly when they approved it stuff too. So I get so excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Okay, many students I work with are interested in graduate level education at some point, but are concerned about funding. Is there a resource out there that includes a list of companies that financially support graduate level education?
So, do you mean in terms of like if they work for that company that they'll pay for their schooling? Because there are a lot of companies that do that. They typically will pay for one class at a time. I don't personally have a list of those schools. I'm not sure if there is a resource for that is currently available. Usually I just hear about them as students, apply or inquire about, they'll say, well, I really want to do this program part-time because my company is going to pay for it. Or certain school districts will pay for it if they're going to be education majors. Find it most commonly like with the MBA and education. So unfortunately,
I did a quick little Google search and it does come up with some companies and stuff like that too. So it's going to maybe meeting with a career coach, doing some research together, you might be able to find some as well. And yeah, with education, folks, I know a lot of educators, because it's a requirement to have your master's for your certification. There's a couple different ways that schools will do that. One of which is after you complete a number of credit hours, you get an increase in your salary, would be one example as well. And then there's a lot of really cool gap year experiences, including like Peace Corps and stuff like that, that as you're applying for those programs, you can also apply for fellowships, and they have connections with different schools based upon kind of what programs they offer, that you can apply for that at the same time, so that when you're done with your service, you can go right into a graduate program too. So it's a really great conversation. And I think a lot of our career coaches and stuff are able to help you search for that too.
Yes, and I just saw Mary's comment. Yes, the SRC does. You're right. We actually have had a number of folks from SRC come through our MBA program. So thank you for that. Any other last questions? You're very welcome.
If anybody does have any questions, feel free to throw them out there or reach out to anybody after the session is ended. But again, we just want to say thank you. And